Good evening, happy Sunday, and happy New Year out there. It is episode 96 of the Wise Guy Sports Show. I am one of your hosts. I am the Big Rican on Sports, Mike Martinez. And without further ado, it is time to bring in the second half of the greatest broadcast team in asshole sports on the internet, JC Blue Note, Mr. Jim Cornetti. And James,
What? I'm not going to argue, but I mean, that was easily the greatest intro you've ever given me.
I do what I can, James. And I figured after the deciding we're not going to call ourselves the helicopter parent and the absentee parent of the podcasting world, or at least not putting it on jerseys.
That was a hell of a way to actually end the year.
It was a hell of a way to end the year. And dude, first of all, Happy New Year to you, sir. I know we've talked on the phone before, but this is different. Happy New Year to you. I hope 2025 is treating you better than the beginning of 24 did to everybody.
Until the bottom falls out tomorrow, but for multiple reasons. But
we'll get to that in the third part.
Yeah.
But again, it's been an interesting start to 24 for myself, or 25, excuse me. But more importantly, dude, I was jamming out to our theme song because I hadn't heard it in a month, and it's like coming home. It's like
there was a part of me that thought of changing the intro as a surprise, but after a month off, I mean, this is why we started late. It's because I haven't touched anything. I was telling you, they changed all the layout, the graphics, everything. With my side panel here on Restream. Restream, I'm not arguing at all. It's a little weird. Every time I come in, I've got to rework something here.
I mean, there's two ways to look at that. Either you're not in there enough, or they like to tinker. I don't know which way to look at it, but either way.
Or maybe not take a month off next year, but it was too nice.
It really was. And unfortunately, the Big Rican Baseball Show did not happen. Our Christmas present from Bobby was Flu A. So, yeah, he was bad, dude. He was bad. Like, it was scary bad. So, but Jim, we got a lot to get to here in the hat trick. So what do you say we kick this pig and get her going?
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
And yes, that was from the last week, not the last month, as you're going to see me basically going squirrel for probably the first two segments of the show, as we have now gone to the fourth quarter in Orchard Park, and the Bills hold a very slim 21-19 lead, which actually leads me to go with
yes, the Buffalo goal horn. There's 5 left, obviously, for at least another 14 minutes and 48 seconds. Listen, some good games in the second round. One that I think blew both our minds yesterday.
Yes.
So let's start with the one that blew our minds, and let's talk about the bound for the NFC Championship game, Washington Commanders. If I am not mistaken, James, it is the first time that a rookie quarterback has taken his team to the conference championship game since Mark Sanchez.
Now, was Sanchez before or after Roethlisberger?
After.
Okay.
And remember, Mahomes wasn't a rookie when he took the Chiefs because he sat a year behind Alex Smith. But listen, hats off to the Commanders, an inspired win in Detroit. My favorite part of that game, by the way, was this footnote that a month ago, Teddy Bridgewater was holding up a Florida State football championship trophy as a head coach. And then he led a touchdown drive yesterday. So weirder things have happened. But Jim, let's talk real quick about that game, because I know you were picking the Lions to do something very special this year. And it seems to me like they kind of got in their own way yesterday.
Dan Campbell, if you weren't that good in the regular season, you should have been fired for that. I'm not going to put a lot of the blame on Jared Goff. You throw with 3 interceptions, absolutely 4 as a team. The play calling was ridiculous at times, borderline stupid, borderline Brett Favre gambler-esque. And then there was the moment that made me go, and that was running a receiver reverse option in the fourth quarter when you're down by 2 scores and driving.
Yeah, it was interesting because I looked at my phone and it said Jameson Williams was intercepted, and I went, what?
The only thing that I could think of with that was Goff had already thrown 2 picks. Did they figure maybe they can get somebody else to, throw another one and get in on the party with Dan Campbell's shitty play calling?
Let's also talk about how horrible the refs were in that game too. Not saying that they would have won with that thing, but the 1 pick six that Goff threw, that should have been a helmet-to-helmet hit, and that should have been because he'd given himself up basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if I thought it was supposed to be not free reign on quarterbacks like that.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is go back to the first game and actually see what they do with,
I can't talk about it. I don't even want to discuss that game because, listen, just real quick. Kansas City is a very good team. They are well disciplined. They are well coached, and they have 2 guys who are either on Mount Rushmore of their positions or going to be on Mount Rushmore of their positions.
How was that not a flag?
I was just going to say, we're going to have to talk about that. That was terrible.
Unless the only thing I can actually think is that they thought that the ball was uncatchable, but obviously it wasn't catchable because he gave him the old reach around.
Well, no, there was no way he's catching that ball. No way. Make the kick. You're a touchdown up. That's all. And Bass is good.
Yep, from 51. I'll take it. As shaky as he's been at times this year, I will take it.
No, I'm a little behind. I mean, Bass is good as in he can hit the kick. I didn't realize he could hit that from 60.
Oh, yeah.
As Jim watches it on regular TV, I have it on the YouTube TV in the background. And Oliver is sitting next to me. So he has started his 4th year with us with his contractually obligated visits to the show. But going back to Kansas City, that was the worst officiated game this side of the one between Green Bay and Seattle those years ago.
I didn't even watch a second of it. I saw that it was, it was 6-3 midway through the first quarter, and Kansas City put 3 points on the board with a -1 yard drive where their turnover wasn't involved. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go watch something on Netflix and watched a very entertaining movie instead.
Which movie?
It just came out. It's called Back in Action. Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx and Glenn Close. It's a action comedy where they are parents and former CIA agents, and they end up getting burned by a case 15 years before when they were partners.
Jesus.
And Glenn Close is an estranged mother who's a former agent herself. Very entertaining. I would certainly recommend it.
Very nice.
And then was watching Heels all afternoon today.
Great show. And you're an Arrowverse guy, so Stephen Amell, of course, is.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to the Detroit game, I want to give the credit where credit is due, because as bad as the Lions played and some of the play calling was, the Commanders went out and won that game. They made the plays they needed to make when they needed to make them. You got to give them their credit, as well as in tandem the BS with the play calling. Now, remember, I will just remind you, Dan Campbell has an offensive coordinator who calls the plays. Maybe we see a different OC in Detroit next year. We're going to see a new DC there because I think Aaron Glenn's going to get a job, which we'll talk about in the second segment. But going back to today, another game you were not happy about, of course, is the early game today, the Rams and the Eagles. God, Gotta suck to be a Giant fan today, huh, Jim?
For the last maybe 10 years, doesn't every day kind of suck to be a Giant fan?
At least since they drafted Danny Dimes.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
since, Eli beat Brady the second time, that's coming up on 10 years.
Holy shit. That was 2007. That's 13 years ago. That was 2011. The 2012 Super Bowl. So, yeah, 13 years this year. Saquon Barkley went off today. And I mean off. Over 200 yards. And I just saw, we were waiting to get started, a video of the final touchdown that he scored. He looked at Jalen Hurts and he says, yo, watch this.
It makes you wonder kind of going into next week now, with the game being in Philly, if the weather's anywhere close to how the second half of that game went today. Realistically, with the elements, you saw a lot of things slow down, and it was a very entertaining fourth quarter, but just because of how bad the conditions were, a lot of old-timey smash mouth. How effective are Robinson, Daniels, and Barkley really going to be next week if there's any type of snow accumulation on that field? I understand they're going to get it cleared, which they've done a great job in here when in Orchard Park, as it started to come down a little bit more there. But, a lot of short, choppy running. Hurts is Hurts, no pun intended here. Is he going to be able to heal up in time for next week? And Philadelphia has the best defense in football. Can they contain Jaden Daniels, who's going to be our rookie?
I think they can. And I think the big thing here is if the elements are going to hurt anyone in that game, it's going to be Jaden Daniels for a couple of reasons. One, Will Curry went to school, Arizona State and LSU. He's never played. I mean, he played in the cold in DC, but cold in Philly is a different animal. If there is snow on the ground, Washington's rushing attack is not to the level of the Haas offensive line. And
denied. You better not give him that spot. I mean, they're still going to go for it, but you were saying?
That's okay. So and as far as Jalen Hurts being hurt, again, I didn't watch any of it today. So I will say this. When you have a bell cow like a Saquon Barkley, you don't need to have your quarterback be 100%.
Yeah, but are you really going to turn your offense one-dimensional for a chance to go to the Super Bowl at this point?
Yeah, but in that kind of weather, you're going to have to. You can't take chances where you're going to, turn the ball over in a big spot because of the weather, bad grip, as they do to tush push with Mark Andrews. So right now, I'm going to call a return to the Super Bowl for Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. I will say this, though. We all thought Tua was going to be the quarterback to change. Well, most people thought Tua was going to be the quarterback to change the narrative on Alabama quarterbacks. Yeah. He just made Oklahoma quarterbacks look real good, Jalen Hurts, because he's going to get a second trip to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So when this game gets done, we're either going to have a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game or a rematch of 2 years ago's AFC Championship game. Because it's either going to be Chiefs and Bills or Chiefs and Ravens.
And I have to say, for what I watched, I said I didn't really watch it, but from what I did see, Kansas City didn't impress me terribly. I mean, balls out. Yes.
Turnover.
Yep.
Go ice this thing.
Yep. Let's go down. Let's actually get Well, shit, it's 5. Yeah, if you put 6 up here, it's over.
Yeah.
Bernard.
Good play.
Wow.
Good play.
And that's
it could
2
happen
that
more.
Andrews has dropped that he had his hands on today.
And it couldn't happen to a better head coach. Anyway, we know my feelings on that last name. But moving forward, Jim, the NFC Championship game is going to be interesting because it's an interdivision game. Did they split this year? I
believe they did.
So listen, I think next week is going to be very, very entertaining. It will be, this and then the Super Bowl will be the culmination of 2 months of very entertaining football on both levels, both college and the pros.
Have we seen possibly Matthew Stafford's last game after today?
Entirely possible. I know the whole family was there. They were on the field with him before the game. And I would say this. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Listen, I give him more credit for being what he was in Detroit for so many years than a lot of people probably do. Because when you are in a culture or on a team where the culture is 60 years of losing and you continually play at that level with Megatron's a first ballot Hall of Famer as a wide receiver, you've got to put him as quarterback.
Right.
So, yeah, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. If it is his last year, hell of a way to go out, man. They weren't supposed to get that far.
No, this was supposed to be San Francisco's year to run away with that division, and the Rams were the only team that came out of that division.
Yeah, and all 3 that came out of the north all got smoked. And it wasn't even close.
You look at it, you've got the NFC East, you got 2 out of the NFC East, you got the AFC East and the AFC Norris, and everybody else is sitting home right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, realistically, take Washington out of the equation. The 4 that are there are the 4 that we all thought were going to be there.
Yeah.
Detroit was the anomaly, and Detroit shit the bed yesterday.
They really did. But listen, you can't argue with a great season that they had. They have a lot of things to build on. Plus, they had 16 dudes on IR.
Yeah, but there's a very good story that came out. Was this their best shot?
I don't think so. I think next year is going to be your best shot. I think stay healthy. You spend a good chunk of time without Aiden Hutchinson. They're going to improve. I honestly.
And that's what stinks. If they would have won yesterday, great throw. If they would have won yesterday, they surely would have been. It would have been a home game. Could Aiden have possibly come back for next week?
Possible.
In a limited role, like a third down role or something like that.
A definite pass rush role, absolutely. But we will keep you guys posted as we get through the rest of this divisional game here in Buffalo. But Jim, why don't you say we get to topic 2, as we hope to not be on for 3 hours tonight with so much to cover. And Black Monday was an evil, evil bitch, wasn't she?
And it really even spilled into Black Tuesday. And this is also something that we saw, going back weeks ago as well, with the Bears firing Eberflus halfway through the season. But it's, we knew it was coming. There were, the Jacksonville job, I thought Doug Peterson was going to be out. We knew that Chicago was going to be in the running. I would have thought that New England would have given Gerard Mayo one more year, even though all signs were pointing towards Mike Vrabel. But
yeah, and here's the thing. I'm going to tie the New England job into the next segment. Once Ryan Day went on this run, Mike Vrabel wasn't getting that job.
Mm-hmm.
which I think you and I talked about, and we said that if he went on a run in the playoffs, he would not lose his job. But Vrabel to New England is a perfect fit. This is a New England legacy. He's in their Hall of Fame, and he's a good coach. He's going to change the culture there. He's a linebacker. He's a smash mouth. I want to win a Super Bowl in New England as a coach. Remember, he was the guy who foiled Belichick's final run at a championship.
Yep.
I'm guessing something crazy happened.
It's completely faked everybody out, and Taron Johnson wide open in the flat for 15. That was perfectly set up. You'll see it here in just a second.
I did. That was a good play. Now the Las Vegas one, that's going to be interesting because Ben Johnson's got his name in there. I don't think it will.
I actually, you and I talked 3 or 4 days before the end of the season. And I said, don't be alarmed if the Vegas job opens up. And
You're like Mr. Dumbass.
You said no, that they would expect that. And sure enough, he was one of the first ones axed.
You're like Nostradamus with these coaches because you have been right on every single one. And I only call you Nostradamus because I won't give you the actual title because we're too good of friends for me to actually say that about you. But all kidding aside,
I prefer Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. Yes. You're very right. But somebody got kicked in a junk.
No, it said he landed on the block. He landed with all of his weight in his midsection. And hitting that hard field, that does not feel good at all.
No, I wouldn't think. That's bad. Anyways, by the way, Baltimore, sorry. Buffalo's going in to end this thing. Vegas, I don't think Prime's coming from college. I don't. But he's been linked there. He's also been linked in Dallas. Jacksonville's going to be an OC because they need to fix Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Sunshine is god-awful. Chicago's interesting. And here's why. Chicago, how do I say this and be nice about it, Jim? Their quarterback's garbage.
Caleb Williams has got a lot of promise, though. After his first year, he's shown, I think he's got potential to be a lot better than Justin Fields was after his first year. Because we said that Fields had promise, but then Matt Eberflus got in the way. And then, or was that still Matt Nagy? Either way, now Daniels was there, and they saw improvement, and then they go on the 8-game losing streak, and Eberflus gets broken off. And did you see the name that was reported to be getting an interview with the Bears in the next 2 days?
It was Mike McCarthy, wasn't it?
Eddie George.
He's already had it.
Okay.
Did you see the clip of him and Tim Brown talking about the championship game? Tim Brown comes out, he's got his Notre Dame hoodie on. Eddie George sits down, and it's a painting of him running away from the Notre Dame defense when he was at Ohio State. He sits down, it pulls out behind him, and Tim Brown just lost his mind. He starts laughing.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to the NCIS return next week. It's been 6 weeks without him. I need my Mondays to get filled back up again. But anyway.
I haven't watched a single episode since Ziva left the first time. Second time.
But, I mean, we're not going to speculate about who's going to get these jobs. Although the Dallas one.
It's not going to be him. It's not going to be him.
I think it's going to be him.
I think it's going to
be because Jerry goes for the flash.
But Jerry doesn't have the capital to draft his kid. If he comes to the NFL, it's going to be somewhere where Shador is going to be the quarterback. So
go, James, go.
Vegas, Jacksonville, New England would have been a great spot. If he doesn't come, it's going to be because his kid's not going somewhere he wants him to go.
because here's what you and I talked about, and let's get into the Cleveland drama. Is because right now the Cleveland Browns are sitting in the driver's seat in the NFL draft. We know that New England's number one. We know New England's going to go Travis Hunter. It's the world's worst kept secret because of, they've got their quarterback. They've got their new coach, and he's going to fill his staff out once the playoffs come to an end for a lot of these teams here in the next few weeks. So they're going to be fine. The Browns right now who is desperate enough to come up to 2 and give the Browns a Sonny Weaver flock worth of picks. It's all a matter of how far do they want to come back, because the idea that you and I floated out here with this is that watch Dion take the job and then Jerry package up a whole bunch of picks, like, 2 1s, a couple of 2s, maybe a third one in there as well, and come up to 2. But the problem is the Browns would have to slide back to 12, and I don't see any way that they're looking to do this. So if I'm sitting there right now and I'm Andrew Berry, as much it has gone wrong, and we're going to talk about their quarterback and their draft situation here in just a second, you know what I'm actually doing here if I'm sitting around and I am Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry? You want them? Come and get them. And we'll unload all this extra draft capital that you apparently don't care about, and we'll turn ourselves into Houston.
Here's where you're flawed in your reasoning with Dallas, and just with Dallas now. Somebody's going to do that, but I think if you're going to get the Browns' number 2 pick, you're going to get their number 2 in Myles Garrett, but we'll talk about that in a second. No one will take Dak's contract. Dak is going to have to be a part of whatever deal happens to get Dallas into the top 3, which is why I don't think it's going to happen. I thought he was going in. Because Dak Prescott he signed that ridiculous contract. They can't get rid of him. The cap hit's going to be too big. They've got to trade him. No one is going to take him.
If they let go of Watson, because we could basically say the guy's name, because basically he's a Cino. He's Cleveland in name only at this point now. He is not coming back. He is not going to suit up for this team anymore. And we'll talk about that here in one more second, as I love the fact that they keep putting the camera on Taron Johnson and Mark Andrews, where Buffalo is 6 feet away from punching their ticket to Arrowhead next week.
Yeah. Now, my last bit about this real quick is stop.
Watch the play and watch what he tries to do, or at least thinks about doing.
When he tried to throw it?
Where he thought about lateraling back to James?
Mm-hmm. Bro,
that would have been scoop and score right there.
Yeah, bro, Haley would have given you the fucking diamond back if you'd have done that, you dumbass. So let's get to that piece. Did you see the thing I sent you on Facebook about him, where they casted all the different players in the NFL?
I didn't see that one just yet, but I did see that one. I didn't see the one that you sent me about the baseball players.
Yes. The baseball players, no. You saw the football one though?
Yes.
I agree with his casting. I also like the guy who's got the Browns jersey with all the quarterbacks' names and has the SA flag where Watson would be. Oh, Jesus. So let's talk about him. A re-tearing of the Achilles for Bill Cosby. And now the question becomes, do the Cleveland Browns with the – and by the way, the keeping of Stefanski and Berry after this season, it just hammers home the thing you and I have been saying since 2021 when they got him. This move was Jimmy Haslam, and Jimmy Haslam all the way.
Because
He cannot get.
people can bitch about Andrew Berry all that they want, that he was the one that pulled it off, but he really, all he's really there to do is to make the capital and the money and everything work as part of this. So he looks like the mastermind, but he's basically being fed the information from the booth at that point.
And remember, could he have put together the draft pick compensation and the trade? Yes, he did. Only one person can sign off on a fully guaranteed contract. That's the owner. And that's the impetus of not being able to trade him. Because if it wasn't a fully guaranteed contract, the cap hit wouldn't be as much. You could just get the fuck rid of him and be done.
So to summarize here for all the folks at home, about a week and a half ago, it was reported that Deshaun Watson had retorn his Achilles. Now it was later kind of discovered that it wasn't the original tear. He tore the secondary ligament, but they said a lot of that, sometimes if you're going to re-tear that during rehab, that actually is not as uncommon as one would think, because there's two tendons in your Achilles. He tore the secondary, the minor ligament, but it still requires a repair because they have to go back in and not only repair that one, but they've also got to repair how that one is now going to interact with the first one that already got repaired back in October, when he tore the first one. Now this is going to mean that since he's rehabbing both, he was originally supposed to be on pace for a 7-month rehab, which would have put him missing minicamp and probably most of training camp, and he maybe would have been available week 6, week 7, week 8, kind of like when Odell Beckham tore his with Cleveland a few years ago when he was here. So he was ready midway through the following season. Now, since you have to add on this rehab, you're looking at anywhere between 7 and 9 months, and that's going to put him into September before. So he's going to miss all of OTAs, all of training camp, and a significant portion of the season. So now if he does not play the entire season, what happens is that the Browns take his $42 million cap hit for 2025, and they can now turn that into an insurance claim to where the insurance will then pay that money, and the Browns will now get that money as a credit towards his salary in 2026, to where when they restructured his contract a couple of months ago, they've added additional buyout years towards, I want to say it's 2030 for that. So they'll still be paying him kind of like a step down scale for this. The contract will be up, but they can actually make the buyout in increments. What this now allows them to do is that if they were to effectively cut him now, they're on the hook for $172 million over the next 2 years. So basically their entire cap number is gone for the next 2 years. If they would wait until June 1st this year, they're still on the hook for that. If they wait until June 1st next year, then they only have the 1 year to pay, and you get that $40 million, you get that 40 some odd $1 million credit. So it's really only going to cost you about $30 million to buy him out, because his cap hit is $72 million with dead cap next year.
That's a lot of math. That tells me just boot him the fuck out of town.
But it's just kind of at this point now, he's gonna, if he misses the whole year, great. You bring in a new quarterback, you bring in a bridge, whether it's a Kirk Cousins, and we'll talk about, some of the names being thrown around here in a minute. But you bring in a bridge guy that you can get on the cheap. You're probably going to end up drafting one. It's not going to be, it's certainly not going to be as bad next year as it was this year. You're going to win at least 5-6 games, even though you've still got a pretty brutal schedule, but you don't have that albatross around your neck hanging over the entire franchise and the locker room next year.
Agreed. Now, we will do more draft coverage as it gets closer to the draft, and of course after tomorrow night. I think there's a couple of names that they could look to get where they won't have to break the bank. There's an injury on the Buffalo secondary.
Yeah, it's well, Let's talk. Let's talk about a couple of them here. Right on his shoulder. Um,
Yep.
Well, I mean, let's talk about them. One of the mock drafts that I saw, and I'm actually trying to pull it back up here. With the Browns, if the Browns were to stay at 2, I don't think they go quarterback now.
I think they go O tackle. I think they go O tackle.
Now, I pulled up a couple of CBS mock drafts, and Ryan Wilson has them going Shadur Sanders at number 2. I think that's a waste.
I think that's terrible.
And Chris Trapasso has them going Jalen Milroe. First of all, Jalen Milroe is not a first-round pick.
No, he's not.
What was one of the other ones? Mike Renner. This is the one. It was either it was Josh Edwards, who I follow a lot of his drafts. So all these drafts have got Tennessee going Cam Ward at 1. I forgot that Tennessee's got 1 and New England's got 4. I misspoke there earlier. In 2 of these drafts, they've got Browns going quarterback. In the other 2 that I'm seeing, they have them going Abdul Carter out of Penn State, the junior All-American edge rusher. I like this a lot for 2 reasons. Number one, you pair him with Miles, your defense is going to be able to limit, even on a bad game, to under 17 points a game. The other aspect would be is that if Miles does ask out, you've already got his replacement there. You got a very Aaron Donald-like Brady Fisk scenario with the Rams. Donald walks away, you draft Fisk, and Fisk has a monster year for the Rams. Now, where's the hold?
I agree with you to that point that Carter is interesting there. I would go offensive line because no matter who you bring in to play quarterback, whether it's Kirk Cousins or, God forbid, Russell Wilson or a Justin Fields or somebody like that, or if you draft a quarterback later, the Browns' offensive line was fucking terrible. Just fucking terrible. I think you have to go left tackle. I don't think Jed Wills worked out as well. I think Jed Wills regressed due to the loss of Bill Callahan to his son in the Tennessee Titans. They got to go O-line here, first of all. Some of the quarterbacks I've seen thrown out there that are going to be later round picks, your Jackson Dart, Will Howard, who has played very well in the postseason, and if they win tomorrow, would put butts in the seats.
I'm going to throw one extra name out there that you might actually think would be interesting and wouldn't placate to the Buckeye honk mentality, but in a backwards way it would. What about going Jalen Carter at 2 and Quinn Ewers at 34? Because he's declared.
Let me tell you this. Quinn Ewers gives off young Sam Darnold vibes. He made some great plays, and I've watched a little bit of him, obviously paying attention to Texas going into last week. I don't know, Jim. I don't know. I think it's because I've seen more Howard, and they're very similar. They both have decent arm strength. They both know how to place the ball well. Howard's a little bit more mobile, and I think with the offensive line issues, you need somebody who's going to be a little more mobile. Howard reminds me of Ben with less of an arm, a little bit less of an arm. Ben had a cannon. But we'll see what they do. I mean, we've got so much stuff going into it that it'll be interesting.
Here's the 2 concerns that I have is that if you go to Howard, unfortunately, we've seen how Buckeyes have worked being drafted by this team in recent memory. DeJuan Jones was a 1-year flash and was basically exposed and might have been one of their worst offensive linemen. Jesus Christ, bring him down on the roster this year. Brian Slobisky was the worst second-round draft pick I think I've ever seen.
Brian Slobisky.
Which was a nepotism hire.
Wasn't his dad the wide receiver coach?
Tommy Togiai was certainly not, he was a 4th-round pick and they
Togiai shouldn't have come out though.
I
Togiai
agree.
should not have
I
come out.
agree. But the nepotism of Buckeye fans in this town, people wanted Tommy Togiai, and then they drafted him, and everyone is running the hype machine on Tommy Togiai, and Togiai was insanely overdrafted. So Togiai should have waited an extra year or been drafted in the 6th round or worse at that particular point. The other concern I actually have is with my example, as great as I would love to see, even though Quinn Ewers did turn the ball over a lot at Texas, but he also put a lot of points on the board at Texas with through the air. If the Browns went Jalen Carter at 2 out of Penn State,
Abdul Carter,
and then Quinn Ewers at 34. Michael, can you remember the last time the Browns drafted, and I'm not saying in the same year, a defensive lineman that high out of Penn State and a quarterback from Texas, and how did they work out?
The defensive
Courtney Brown,
line,
Colt McCoy.
both very good players
In college.
and it wasn't very good in the NFL. Now, I will see your point there and raise you this one. Quinn Ewers is not a 2nd-round pick. He's not. He's a 3rd or 4th round pick, as is Will Howard. And I think all things equal, you take the guy who, if Jerry Jeudy can play to his potential, you take the guy who was in a pass-happy offense because he knows how to make reads. He knows how to do these things. You go from there. And again, whereas Fields and Haskins and Stroud were 1st-round picks with a lot of hype to them, Will Howard won't be that guy. He will be allowed to come in and assimilate to the NFL and the Browns and be he would be a less risky pick than even Ewers. Because Ewers comes with the Texas, SEC, yada, yada. Howard, it's like, well, there's only really one good Buckeye quarterback in the NFL, and that's CJ Stroud, and he had an okay 2nd year. Well, let's see what this kid does. And there will be no hype. You won't have to deal with the hype of having that guy there because your 1st-round picks are going to take all the hype. That's why I would take Howard, but that's just me. We'll see what he does tomorrow against a legit defense, but Jim, I have a feeling they're going to fuck this up. I really do.
Because the only concern I have is that if you have this much draft capital, and especially if you got the possibility of somebody like the Giants, coming up, or New England, well, then again, the Giants are only at 3. Are the Giants desperate enough to come up to 2? Are the Raiders coming up from 6 would be interesting. The Jets coming up from 7 could be interesting. Realistically, in the top 12, you could make a case that all but about 3 of those teams don't have the possibility of coming up to 2 because they all could use quarterbacks. Jacksonville at 5 will not come up for that. The Raiders at 6, yes. The Jets at 7, yes. The Panthers at 8, yes. The Saints at 9, yes. The Niners at 11, no. The Bears are at 10, no. And Dallas at 12. Dallas could possibly come up, but again, they still owe, Dak way too much money.
Much like Baker not getting out of Cleveland, but for a 5th rounder, no one's doing Jerry Jones any favors.
That was a legal motion. Shit!
Just do what you did last time. Stop the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And here we thought Philly and the Rams was going to be the best game of the day.
Now I'm nervous. I'm like insanely nervous. So
Don't be
before I
nervous.
lose my shit, Michael, would you like to close up the last part of the hat trick on our return?
Sure. as Jim jumps out because he does not want to talk about this at all. Right. First ever.
Jim will not be talking college football effective immediately. Any college football segments on the Wise Guys going forward immediately will be Michael. College basketball, college baseball, college anything else. Jim is officially checked out of college football, so I will see you guys in a few minutes.
Tomorrow night, the first ever 12-team playoff culminates with the championship game just 4.5 hours north of me in Atlanta, as number 9 Notre Dame is the home team against in the playoff, Notre Dame is number 7. And of course, Ohio State, the number 8 seed, and the winner of a tough road to get there. Beating Tennessee, or pummeling Tennessee, pummeling Oregon, and beating Texas last week. They opened as a 9.5-point favorite. The line is down to 8.5. But let's talk about these two teams real quick. And let's talk about two teams that played one-score games in both 2022 and 2023. Both teams lost unexpected games this year. Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame, and of course, Ohio State losing to Michigan on the final Saturday of the season. But the playoff has been a different animal. Notre Dame handled an 11-1 Indiana team pretty easily. In the next round, they beat up on Georgia with Carson Beck out. But Carson Beck out notwithstanding, I don't think they lose to Georgia there. And, of course, they win their semifinal game against Penn State 27-24 on a basically walk-off field goal. Ohio State, again, a 42-21 beating of 42-17, beating of Tennessee, a 42-21 beating of, or 41-21 beating of Oregon. And then, of course, last week against Texas, the 28-14 win, which was highlighted by the Captain Jack Sawyer scoop and score to end it with inside the Ohio State 5 at the end of the game. So these are the two teams that ran the gauntlet. Neither team had a bye. Neither team, they both had home games, but they had to play unfavorable matchups in round 2 where you didn't think they were going to, that nobody really gave Notre Dame a chance against Georgia. Of course, Ohio State had to play Oregon. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow night. These are two of the top 5 defenses in all college football. The one thing I would say is something I said before the 2002 championship game between Ohio State and Miami. And that is Notre Dame hasn't played an offense like this. They have talked about playing man all week against Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka and Carnell Tate. And, of course, the backs out of the backfield with Henderson and Judkins and G. Scott at tight end and Kazmarek for that matter. But you're talking about a team that's going to play man against the most talented wide receiver core in college football. It may not end well for them with that. But the converse, Ohio State never does well against mobile quarterbacks, and Riley Leonard is exactly that. He is a very good mobile quarterback who did a lot of damage against both Penn State and Georgia with his legs. What this is going to come down to is a stat that no one really talked about in the media because it wasn't sexy enough and it wasn't an SEC team that did it. Penn State scored 24 points against Notre Dame, and they didn't complete a pass to the wide receivers at all. Don't see that happening tomorrow night. Making a pick, I'm picking Ohio State. I'm not picking them to cover. This will be a great game. I think it will be one of the better championship games we've had in the CFP era. Most of them have been blowouts. Going back just a few years ago, you have the record for biggest win in any kind of bowl game with what Georgia did to TCU. Just a couple years before that, you have basically that Alabama team, which is the entire first round of the NFL draft, beat up a beaten down, injured Ohio State team 54-24 in that game. So you've had some blowouts. You've had a couple of good games. The Clemson, Bama games 2 years in a row were very good. The Bama-Georgia overtime game is very good. I think it's going to be in there with those guys. This is not going to be what a lot of people are calling it. A lot of people are saying Notre Dame doesn't have a chance. No, a Marcus Freeman coach team has a chance to win anytime they play. It's going to come down to who doesn't turn the ball over and what defense can play their game and stop the other offense. If I had a bet, I don't think Notre Dame is somebody who can cover Jeremiah Smith all day. Texas had the Thorpe Award winner on it, and they still bracketed him over the top with safeties every chance they got. So it's going to be interesting. I've run my mouth enough, and now the cat wants in. So, Jim, why don't you hop back on? Let me know what's going on in Buffalo. Jim? Did they stop the 2-point? Very good. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Bring on the chefs. Great googly muggly.
I will ask you one question about the I don't know if you're listening to me or you're watching the Bills.
1 second. I can't find the TV remote.
Did you do the TV remote, dude? Oh, it's on the bed. Is that your blanket on the bed too?
Sorry, my niece's boyfriend is on TV for a minute.
Josh Allen?
Yes.
Did anyone tell Haley? I will ask you one question. I don't know if you heard the stat I gave, but Penn State gave Notre Dame all the fits and didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver. Do you think that's going to be Notre Dame's Achilles heel? That the Buckeyes do have a talented wide receiver core, or do you think they can hold them in?
I'm here so I won't get fined.
Fair enough.
I said it before, and before I ducked out. This has effectively ruined college football for me. That I will watch every other college sport. I will not watch college football anymore after this. That with the fact of you had, the payrolls of these teams.
By the way, Notre Dame's fourth in that.
Yes, and so you got two of the top four teams. It's no different than baseball right now. That you got no salary cap and Lamar basically hugging Josh Allen, laughing off the field as he knew he also just lost the MVP.
That was voted 4 weeks ago.
It doesn't matter at this point because Josh. It's Josh and Mahomes 3 next week in Arrowhead, and shit, we're going to be on the air for that one too. God damn it!
I apologize.
Lord, I apologize for being to pick me.
And please help start paying me in New Guinea. Amen.
So,
but now let me say this to you. I've made a joke about this to you. I have made seriousness on social media comments about this, but I find it hysterical that in the first year of a 12-team playoff, no SEC team will be in the final. And everybody's paying players now, and it's above board, and the SEC has been dog shit 2 years in a row.
The tournament has been. I'm going to say they've already come out and actually said that they're talking about tweaking it going forward. They need to because it was absolute dog shit this year.
It really wasn't, though.
It was. The first round was fucking atrocious, and then you had a whole bunch of upsets because Carson Beck was out. Oregon got the bye and was running by the skin of their teeth. Texas, got bit by the bugaboo, which is hilarious. In their own house, none the fucking less. Indiana should not have been in that tournament to begin with. I understand that.
Yes, they should have been.
SMU. Granted, they won the ACC regular season title. They need to change the format for selecting these teams. I don't argue with the teams that were there. The seeding was fucking dog shit, and it led to, I thought this year, with the fact of the matter that your guys are going to win this game by 30 at this point tomorrow.
I don't think they will.
And a lot of people are going to be saying, Jim, this is sour grapes. You're a Buckeye hater. Yeah, absolutely, because they're one of the biggest parts of the problem. They also have probably the third most insufferable fan base in all of North American sports behind the Yankees and the Lakers at this point. And
can I add the Maple Leafs?
They're terrible as well, but they're delusional because they haven't won shit. They haven't been close to winning shit. They've been out of the first round once in the last 20 years.
I know, and me being a Buckeye fan, I will say this: the fan base pisses me the fuck off too. I would do the Lakers first, the Maple Leafs second because they're really off. You see a bunch of walk through Montreal talking shit all day. I would put the Yankees third, only because they're still living in 2009, and then I would put the Bucks fourth.
Yeah, the problem is that you look at all of these teams that we just named, they're marketable for fashion reasons. So like everybody wants to wear a cowboy hat. It's fashionable. Everybody wants to wear a Laker hat. It's fashionable. Everybody owns that New York at some point. It's fashionable and they bandwagon. So that's all that it is. And the Buckeyes, again, they're bandwagon. Remember, they were dog shit in the 80s.
Listen, and I picked him up in the Cooper era when I moved out there. So I have 30 years of fandom in that. I will say I don't go off the deep end either side. I went back and watched some of our previews of the game, and when people were calling it, they were going to win by 3 scores. I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. No.
I would find it absolutely hilarious if people think that Ohio State's going to run away and hide in this game, and then Notre Dame comes out and blows their doors off like LSU and Florida did.
Well, no one thought they were going to run away.
It would be the most Ohio State thing to do.
No one thought they were going to run away and hide against LSU. If you remember,
against Florida, they did.
Against Florida, they did. But if you remember correctly, when
I'm going to start calling Mark Andrews Clifford Franklin because he needs to stick him because he dropped 3 balls today and 2 of them would have actually got him the victory today.
So does that mean when he does the tush push, he says Clifford Franklin's looking for a new hoe?
Because he looked like he just jacked off an elephant.
Speaking of that movie real quick, and then we'll go to halftime.
Yeah, I'm going to get banned for that one.
Probably.
I still have 12 more hours.
Do you know that people are putting the scene with Gene Hackman and Favreau right before they put a clip of Jack Sawyer with the scoop and score? Danny, I need that ball. Go get me the ball. So Jim, we did the hat trick in under an hour.
20, 21, 22, 23. We'll see you guys in 8 minutes.
See you in
or less.
Or less.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of 7 on our return from hiatus.
I don't have it in me for 7 there, bro, but I'll do 2.5 or 3.
I don't think we're going to need nearly that long tonight. I really don't.
I don't think we will either. But Jim, for as much hilarity as we had in the first half, doing a quick hat trick in comparison. Let's get into the blast and get through the first part, because that's going to be rough.
Hey, in case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, you haven't.
Downtrodden looks on our face, because the first thing you see under the blast, and that is we have lost Bob Uecker. For those of us who grew up with the staple of our life on the east side of Cleveland, the first time I met Bob Uecker was on Mr. Belvedere. Dude, that was rough the other day.
I mean, not for nothing, we also lost Greg Gumbel during our hiatus.
We did.
Dick Vitale, cancer-free, but then had an accident, and his return to college basketball is now delayed indefinitely, but they said the accident was not related to cancer. But Dickie V's 85. We don't know how much more we got with him. But
You can tell Lee Corso's on the way out.
Greg Gumbel, for me, was rough. And then Bob Uecker passing away took it to a whole other level, not only as a Clevelander, but as a baseball fan.
Agreed. I have his final call on my phone. I saved it. Unfortunately, for Milwaukee fans, his final call, of course, is the double play turned by Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso to end the wild card series this past season for the Mets against the Brewers, after the epic comeback that the Mets had in the 9th inning of Game 3. What's your favorite Uke memory?
God. Talk about putting me on the spot coming off of hiatus, dude. For me, as much as we want to talk,
Oh, shit.
and all the Harry Doyle memories, just listening to him call Indians playoff games in the 90s with Costas on NBC.
Greatest call.
And knowing just really how great of a commentator he was when the comedy was turned off, and just how great an analyst he was, because he was Milwaukee Brewers baseball on the radio for years. And
54 seasons.
And to be able to see him play second fiddle to Bob Costas, who calls one of the more majestic baseball games in our lifetime. I mean, Costas got to be up there with the Scullys and the gentleman in Detroit and Tom Hamilton and as much as it pains us to say it, Michael Kay,
Gary and Howie.
Gary and Howie and Jack Buck and McCarver was the Robin to his Batman when Jack Buck was calling games, and Uecker was that to Costas. Is he was so good on his own, but you always appreciated when you put two guys of that caliber together, and he knew he was going to play second fiddle to Costas, because Costas was NBC, tried and true and everything, and he was the voice of the 80s, for NBC Sports. But it made you wonder, whereas, like, as we've now gotten older, Romo is love or hate. Brady is love or hate. McCarver is love or hate. Mark Jackson and Van Gundy, when they were on the NBA before ESPN let them go, were love or hate. Nobody said that about Euchre. And even though that was a time well before the internet, nobody said that about Euchre.
No, and they never will. I think the city of Milwaukee would rise up and kill them if they tried. The Miller Lite commercials were amazing.
He's got 2 statues in that stadium.
And the one outside is my favorite. The one inside, excuse me, is my favorite.
Well, did you
see,
actually see what somebody did to the statue outside the other day?
Well, and now obviously there's a lot more, but someone put a single Miller Lite can in front of Euchre's.
Because he made the front row.
Yeah. But the one where he gets put up in the top of the stadium and he screams he missed the tag.
Yep.
That was just
that was legendary. That was one
comedy
of the best,
gold.
That was one of the best light beer commercials of the 1980s.
And then of course you have Harry Doyle, which in sports movie history is one of the top 5 characters ever invented. And from what I understand, he wrote it. It was entirely ad-libbed. So when you heard "That's All We Got," one goddamn hit, that was Bob Uecker. He have it with the MLB app. I was able to listen to him call some of Game 3 because apparently he's been fighting cancer for years. And he did not work games 1 or 2, but he worked Game 3. And one of his broadcast partners even said it felt like it was his final game. And you wanted Milwaukee to win a World Series so you could get a World Series ring being the play-by-play guy because you loved him in the locker room.
Very, very quick to interrupt. According to ESPN, Rams Matthew Stafford will take time to think on his future. So there is optimism that he could retire. And it was also reported earlier today that I just saw as Sam Cosmi will miss the rest of the postseason after tearing his right ACL as one of the starting offensive linemen for the Commanders on Saturday against the Lions.
Wow. That's not good for the Commanders.
So go ahead and continue with your thought, Mike. I just saw that come across.
No problem. I will say he may have the greatest induction ceremony speech of all time. And I sent that to you. And to realize he did not write it. That was off the top of his head at the time. The things he said that made the Hall of Famers cry. Did you watch it? I know I sent it to you. Did you have a chance to watch it?
I watched bits and pieces of it. You know what it reminded me of a lot was Bobby the Brain Heenan's Hall of Fame induction speech.
I mean, how many guys can say they're in the Baseball Hall of Fame and the WWE Hall of Fame?
Very true. And got choked out by Andre the Giant at a WrestleMania.
WrestleMania 3. But when he did the Hall of Fame induction speech, some of the things he said, when he set up his birth, saying it was a nativity-like scene, I mean, it was pure gold. Absolute pure gold. So Yuke's going to be missed. I mean, terribly missed.
I mean, how much are we going to be watching Major League on repeat this year as Guardians fans, knowing that they're probably going to end up taking a step back this year after all the moves, and it might be the highlight of our season just to be able to put those movies on for a little bit.
It's the highlight of any baseball season when your team's not playing to watch that movie. Me personally, the fight scene in the second one when they brawl with each other.
Welcome back to Major League Baseball. Sort of.
I don't know, Monty. Vaughn's holding his left a little low. Might hurt him in the later rounds. Or Monty, fly ball. Caught.
There's just so many. I mean, he's forever going to live on in the blast until we get a copyright dispute telling me to take it down, and I'll still find a way to put it back up.
I don't think we'll get one for you. I think the way he was and the way his family knows he wants everyone to enjoy, and that it's perfect.
If we didn't have absolute shit weather, there was a part of me that actually was going to get a Miller Lite tall boy and drink it on camera tonight. But I figured that's a little too much alcohol right before bed, knowing I had to get up for work tomorrow morning, not knowing that we actually got shipped home. And I'll talk about that here when we talk about the weather a little bit later on as we close out the show.
Yeah, we have to, because of something I told you before the show started. Motherfucker. So let's get to the next one, and let's make it a little happier. Is Alexander Ovechkin coming back? How long was he out for his busted leg?
6 weeks.
Yeah, he's within 20 of Gretzky, and the way he's playing, he's going to get there.
Easily. It's he comes back, he gets 2. He got an empty netter the other night. He had one in the first period, and then he had an empty netter to close. And the Washington Capitals have now supplanted the Winnipeg Jets as the best team in the NHL.
Wow. Ovi's got a cup, right?
Yes, 2018, the year before my Blues. So going into action, so through tonight's action, because the only game left on the slate is Dallas and Detroit, and they're in the third. The Washington Capitals lead the Eastern Conference with 67 points. Toronto leads the Atlantic right now with 60. So Washington is way out in front, and they're 2 better than Winnipeg's 65. And Vegas and Edmonton have 61 each. Another story that actually came out today involving Edmonton: Connor McDavid is looking at a suspension
For that hit?
There was a very ugly end to the Edmonton-Vancouver game the other night, and Connor McDavid cross-checked Lars Pettersson in the head, and Connor McDavid's probably going to get broken off for at least a game, maybe 2.
Jesus Christ!
I mean,
it's nice to see a scorer. It's nice to see a scorer willing to bang heads, though.
Yeah, it is. It is, but. Michael, as good as the AO story is, can we talk about a hockey game that is still 6 weeks away that is going to put a lot of asses in seats that you could be very interested in, because it's taking place on who you're wearing's home field?
Yes.
The 2025 NHL Stadium Series will conclude this year. It started with the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve, where my Blues dismantled the Chicago Blackhawks again. But it will conclude this year, March 1st, at the Horseshoe in Columbus. In their 5th outdoor game, the Detroit Red Wings will be playing in this one, taking on the hometown Columbus Blue Jackets, making their first ever outdoor game appearance. And oh yeah, the Columbus Blue Jackets are currently sitting in the 2nd wild card spot and are only 6 points out of the 3rd place spot that would actually guarantee that they are not in that wild card. And they are 7 points out of the 2nd spot in their division. As a team who lost their best player and everyone thought new coach, new GM, and your best player is gone, you're a lottery team. You're in the playoffs, and you are playing phenomenal hockey right now. And there's a lot of talk that defenseman Zach Werenski could get some Hart Trophy run, because he is leading the Blue Jackets in goals right now as a defenseman. Werenski's got 17 goals. The NHL in this modern era, I'm trying to remember who it was, but somebody had 30. I want to say it was Mike Smith when he was in Nashville, and
Sure, it wasn't Brian Beach.
And won the Norris going away. So Zach Werenski right now is the front runner for the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman, and Columbus is just playing very, very smart, sound, fundamental hockey, and they're very entertaining. And I am starting to come around on the Blue Jackets.
Well, I'm glad you are. Because I think if
gotta-
I pick the NHL back up again full time, it's going to be Columbus. Because screw the Rangers.
And from what I showed you, did you see some of the Easter eggs that came out of those jerseys?
I'm going to be very honest with you, Jim. I saw the jerseys. I thought they were phenomenal. I didn't pay close enough attention for Easter eggs. Why don't you tell me?
So the Detroit jersey just kind of has a Detroit stripe. Detroit does not do a whole lot of flash and flare when they do reverse retros or outdoor jerseys, but it's a very good, clean, classic look for them. What Detroit did is two nods. Number one, they put the winged wheel logo on the sides of the helmets and then put a racing stripe down the middle, because people were talking, why not, could you actually incorporate the Michigan into the Red Wings? But with all the copyrights, it was never going to happen. So they did the next best thing. They put the winged wheel and a racing stripe so it almost mimics the winged helmet. And they put their octopus mascot logo down at the hem of the jersey. So it's very, very, it's very slightly noticeable. What the Columbus Blue Jackets did, and Mike, I even showed you, you said that those were some of the nicest alternate or third jersey or specialty jerseys you've seen. They took the cannon off their shoulder patch, and it's now the primary one on the front. So it's a navy jersey trimmed in silver and red. It's got a brand new kind of cross patch, like an old Civil War Army soldier would be on the shoulder. And it's just a very good, clean, classic look. And people were saying, why not actually try to see if you could do like a red and gray jersey kind of trimmed in a little bit of blue as a nod to Ohio State? And they're like, we want to be our own person. So what they did is they actually, on the inside of the jerseys where they kind of put the hem, or teams will put like specialty insignias, like the Buffalo jersey I have back there. It's the lightning bolt and stars that are on the city of Buffalo's flag. They actually have Buckeye leaves, not the actual Buckeye, but the Buckeye leaves on the inside of the jersey, on the inside of the collar of the jersey.
Nice.
So very, very cool nod. Are they going to put 110,000 in there? No. Are they going to put 60,000 in there? I don't know. Let's see where they are in 6 weeks. I could see them putting 70,000 in that stadium between those two.
If they're still in it, especially if they don't fall.
Especially with Detroit having been the worst team in the conference and then rattling off 8 wins in their last 10, and now they're only 5 points out of the playoffs, chasing Columbus.
You're going to get a lot of fans down from Michigan. You're going to get a lot of Columbus fans in there. So I think it's a great fit.
Especially the first week of March, too, where the weather's not going to absolutely blow.
No, it'll still be cold enough for the ice, but definitely it's not going to blow. I'll be in hot Atlanta that week. So speaking of weather, let's just throw it out there. I told Jim something today that made him very happy. There was snow in the forecast in Brunswick, Georgia for Wednesday.
Currently in Cleveland, as I get to play Betsy Kling and Andre Bernier and Dick Goddard and everybody else, it is 17 degrees outside with lake effect snow. It is a complete whiteout outside. They're expecting 2 to 4 inches tonight. Tomorrow's weather in Cleveland will be a high of 9 and a low of 0. And Tuesday's forecast will be a high of 7 and a low of -11. And then on Wednesday, as Mike is getting snow, we will be ready to put our flip-flops back on because it will be a high of 11.
You know, it was like a low of 10, though.
Yeah, but it's not going to be -10.
That's true.
So as this front comes through, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to suck. I've already been told to stay home tomorrow and Tuesday, even though there's not going to be any snow. We don't want to take a chance with the temperature, and then we'll just pick it up and we'll go into the office in the frigid temperatures on Wednesday. And then it's going to be in the 20s on Thursday. And then we're going to be in the 30s for the next week. So all this shit's going to melt. And it was 38 degrees on Thursday after coming off of a couple of frigid days. Literally, I went for a walk on my lunch break. I didn't put my coat on. I put a very, very light fleece hoodie.
Yeah, no, people are freaking out down here. The milk and the bread's gone. Like, what the fuck's that going to do?
I mean, because you guys see any bit of snow and the whole city shuts down.
Yeah, I made a joke with my boss. Said, you making me come to work since I know how to drive in it?
I think you told me that on our rundown on Friday.
To which, Steph said, listen, if it's really bad, stay home. Because I have the laptop, of course, to work from home. She goes, people don't know how to drive in this stuff down here. I said, people don't know how to drive in the fucking sun down here. You see it.
Because you and I are old enough to remember the school of thought that like growing up, the cars down there did not have even rear window defrosters.
A lot of them don't. You know what else? I see a lot of rear wheel drive down here. Yeah. So let's get into something that you and my son will love. Well, maybe not love, but PFL has dissolved Bellator, huh?
Yeah. The PFL actually announced earlier this week that they're moving away from the seasonal format that they've used since their inception in 2018. And now it's going to be very much like a Grand Prix style. So they're going to bring in the 8 best fighters in the weight class under contract. And it's going to be a kind of a rapid fire tournament. So there's going to be 3 fights over 5 months. And instead of it being a season where you get, 3 league fights and then, possibly 2 tournament fights where my girl Dakota Ditcheva won all 5 of her fights this season and walked away with $1 million. This year it's going to be 8-person tournament, 3 fights within 5 months, and the top prize will be $500,000 for the world championship. But they're also talking, and what they did is they effectively ended the Bellator brand because PFL bought Bellator a few years ago, and now they're not going to promote the Bellator brand. Now they're actually going to call it like the PFL like Super Fight League or something like that. 2 Bellator legends have already asked for and received their release, with one already jumping to the UFC, and that's current lightweight champion Patricio Pitbull Freire, who is probably the most marketable name in Bellator over the last 7-8 years. So I mean, it's good news for UFC, but there's got to be part of me that thinks that this is not going to, that's what set them apart was the seasonal format. I could see them maybe going back to that and maybe try this out for a year and see how it goes. But if they get a few more big names that jump ship, who knows?
Yeah, that's definitely one we're going to Zach on again as the year goes on. Next time there's a big UFC fight, and you guys can get into, because he's getting big into it as well. The chaos in the top 10. Are we talking college basketball there, sir?
Very much so. We saw this time last week, we saw number 1 Florida absolutely annihilate. We saw number 8 Florida annihilate number 1 Tennessee by 30 on their home floor. And Florida made history in that game. But then Florida, in their very next game, goes out on their own home floor and gets waxed by Mizzou. So that was very bittersweet for me because Mizzou had actually waxed Arkansas on this past Saturday, not last Saturday, but the Saturday before. UConn goes out and gets waxed by Creighton. Auburn goes out and holds serve. Kentucky goes out and wins a close one after. So it's all over the place. So Kentucky beats Florida. Florida waxes Tennessee. Missouri waxes Florida. And who wants to be in the top 10 right now? Because Auburn right now is number 1. It's hilarious to see where all of this is going, and it's lending credence to the fact that the SEC has actually quickly established themselves as not only the premier college football conference over the years. I mean, now that, everything's kind of gone into the 4 mega conferences, but it's not even the teams coming over that join the SEC and the Big Ten and everything, but it's just everybody beating the living shit out of each other. And then Cooper Flagg sets an ACC freshman record with 42 points in a recent win for Duke, who's sitting right now at number 4. So who wants to, this is now silly season because Iowa State also went out and got waxed over the weekend at number 2.
Yeah, I'm not paying a whole lot of attention because, of course, the only basketball I'm watching these days is the Eastern Conference leading Cleveland Cavaliers.
And we will talk about them here in a few minutes, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to cap the college basketball talk, and I want to jump into the Cavs real quick.
I will gladly move on there.
No.
There are,
But the 2 things I wanted to tell you about. Did you see Dawn Staley's contract?
I did.
Highest paid coach in college basketball. 2, congratulations, Paige Buecher's becoming the fastest player in UConn history to 2,000 points. Paige, hats off to you, honey.
And kudos to Michael. Can you name who has the 5th longest winning streak in men's college basketball in the country right now at 10 games?
Michigan State?
The Cleveland State Vikings.
Yes.
My hometown can I say alma mater even if I didn't graduate from there?
I think you should.
Longest winning streaks in the country right now, and I'm going in no particular order. Duke is on a 12 gamer. Houston, number 10, Houston is at 10. And these are all out of order. Auburn is at 10, and they are the number 1 team in the country. And Cleveland State has won 10 games in a row. And Cleveland State's next 2 games are against the 2 worst teams in the Horizon League. Cleveland State is 8-1 in the Horizon League, 14-6 overall. So you look at this, they were 4-6 out of conference this year. They get into conference, they're 8-1, rattled off 10 straight. Now, granted, one of those was against a Division II school. One of those was against Baldwin Wallace, who's an Ohio-based Division III school. They got waxed in their opener by almost 50 against Michigan. But great job by the Vikings to be able to rattle this off.
Absolutely. Vikings always played. I always look forward to the tournament because there's a couple of years I can pick Cleveland State to win, and they don't, but I always pick them.
I'm hoping here by the end of the season, maybe I can get down to Wolstein to catch a game. I do know that I actually have caught at least 2 Vikings games because they play all of them on ESPN Plus. So even if the weather sucks, I can sit home and watch the Vikes on TV.
Nice.
And I couldn't do 5, 6, 7 years ago before ESPN Plus.
No. I'll be able to watch them too because I still have my ESPN Plus subscription. So I'll be able to do that. So let's jump into the Cleveland Cavaliers. How do you get mad at a team that's 33-6 or 34-6? No, 35-6. I'm sorry.
Who, even though that they got waxed the other night, Oklahoma City goes out and loses their very next one. So they're still the number 1 team in the NBA.
No, I agree. They are playing outstanding. 35-6. They have a 6.5 game lead on the Boston Celtics, who they are 2-1 against.
11 up on Milwaukee in that division. And everyone's saying Milwaukee's figuring it out. They're not going to make up 11 games right now.
They ain't catching Cleveland. But let's talk about that OKC game.
Which one?
Well, the first one, did you hear what Windhorst said about it?
I did, and you and I talked about it. That might have been one of the greatest back and forth basketball games I've ever watched in 46 years.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this. It was the second greatest back and forth game I ever watched because, of course, the best back and forth game you and I both have ever watched is Game 7 in 2016.
I don't know about that because a lot of that second half was very sloppy. Remember, nobody was scoring anything in the first half of that game. It was
That's
it was
true.
an almost unwatchable first half, and then it turned up in the second half, and it was very, very slow and dead the final 3 minutes. There were only like 7 points in the final 3 minutes. That game,
Yeah.
Cavs go out in front. Oklahoma City makes a run. Oklahoma City comes out. Cavs go up by 10. Oklahoma City runs back, goes up by 4, and then the Cavs just shut the door with 3 minutes with about 2.5, 3 minutes to go. It was, I mean, I'm sorry to say it. First of all, it's highway robbery that the Cavs only have one player currently on the All-Star ballot, in legitimate position to get elected. Although the NBA All-Star game is an absolute joke just because it's all a fan vote. And the fact is
Mhm.
you've got the best team in the league and you're only going to have one player representing them right now. Can Kenny Atkinson win an MVP even if he's a coach?
No, but Kenny Atkinson will be the NBA Coach of the Year.
And I think after the last two performances over the course of the last 9 days, you might be able to start tracing out the stencil that you're going to be able to use to etch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's name on the MVP trophy this year.
Yeah, he has been amazing. If you go to what they did Thursday night against Cleveland, Oklahoma City, listen, Cavs shot the ball terrible Thursday night. But at the same time, Oklahoma City came out on their home floor and proved that they're just as good as Cleveland is. So you got to tip your cap to that one. Then the Cavs go out and beat the piss out of Minnesota. And tomorrow they're one of the MLK Day games at 3:30 against. That's at home, right?
Correct.
3:30 against Devin Booker, the fucking Snake, and the Phoenix Suns, which they should walk. They're 10-1 or 11-1 against the Western Conference.
And the only loss was the Oklahoma City game.
So you're even with the team that's got the second best record in the NBA. Yes, that's a good thing. You have owned, and listen, think about the games they lost in the Eastern Conference. They lost at Boston. Okay.
In a game that you were down 22 and then battled back to be down by only 4, and then Boston pulled away late.
And then you beat Boston on your home floor after losing to them.
And then you lose back-to-back against Miami where you basically just didn't show – I'm sorry, against Atlanta where you didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
But Atlanta's also beaten Boston this year. So Atlanta's going to play spoiler for a lot of teams.
Exactly. Atlanta's a very good team. So basically you've lost 5 games. You lost 2 to Atlanta, 1 to Boston, 1 to OKC. And who was the 5th? Did they lose 1 to Miami? Yeah, they lost in Miami.
Come on. Your 6 losses. Okay, you lost to the Thunder. Oh, the Pacers, where they basically didn't show up. That the one that broke the winning streak.
That's right.
And then you turned back around on their home floor. Even though you won by 10, it wasn't that close.
No, it wasn't. They dominated that game. So, Jim, I'm going to call something right now. They're getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. If Kobe Altman, and what's the GM's name again? I keep forgetting. Mike somebody.
Gansey.
If Kobe and Gansey tweak this roster a little bit, even Boston, I don't see Boston beating them.
Do you tweak this roster right now? Because they're the best team in the NBA, and they didn't change a thing
That's
from
true.
last year. The entire roster is back because this is the argument that you and I don't want to say argument, but this is a conversation you and I had last week on the phone, not during our Friday rundown, but I want to say it was like maybe last Tuesday or last Wednesday night. And I certainly had a conversation with my dad. The idea was that, is Donovan going to come back? You kept thinking he was. I thought he was gone. He signs, and now then the talk becomes, do you break up the Twin Towers in the front court? Do you break up him and DG, the PG, in the backcourt? Does Karis LeVert get moved for a piece? What's going to happen here? Is this core four going to get broken up? What's going to happen with Okoro after you signed him? Are you going to do a sign and trade with him? What happens with Dean Wade? And they didn't change anything except the culture and the motivation at the top on game day, to where they rattled off 15 in a row, and they're the only team in the NBA, I want to say, I don't even think the 73-9 Warriors did this, to have 2 10-game winning streaks before the All-Star break.
I'm correct about very few things that we talk about, James, that I truly enjoy. I've been correct about things that I haven't enjoyed. This one I'm enjoying. When they changed Kenny Atkinson and made him the head coach, I told you this is what this team needed.
The only concern I have for the Cavaliers right now, and I understand it's just where the chips fall, is the way that the league has kind of done them no favors with the scheduling aspect.
Nope.
Because you played on Saturday, you're off until Monday, then you get 2 days off. You're in Houston. You get a day rest on Thursday. Then you're in Philly. Then you basically turn around from Philly. You get Houston Saturday, Detroit next Monday, a week from Monday, and then you're in Miami, and then you play Miami and Atlanta back to back. So realistically, there have been days where they've had 7 games in 13 days, or when they do actually give them a break like they had going into the Oklahoma City game. And it's just where the teams have fallen at this point this year. Yeah, you're giving them 3-4 days off, but the teams that they're actually playing, when they, it's playoff type atmosphere because of how good those teams are. We knew Oklahoma City was going to be good. Does it seem fair that they give them the better part of like 5 games in like 9 days, give them 3 days off, and expect them to go and then set up for the big matchup with Oklahoma City? Absolutely not.
No, it's not right. It's not right at all. But I tell you what, I see 55 to 60 wins from this team. Actually, I'll say 60 to 65 from this team. They'll set the franchise record for wins. Because you figure to get 60.
I was going to say, you're at 41 right now. You'd have to play 500 basketball the rest of the way just to get to 55.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be fine. I see 60 to 65 wins for this team. I see the 1 seed, and I see, if healthy, we will see what would have happened last year against Boston. So, big things to come for the Cavs. James,
because the big rematch against Boston is Thursday, February 4th, and that's another nationally televised game. And then you end your regular season series against Boston February 28th in their barn on national TV.
Yeah, so February's going to be a good month for the Cavs. So let's see how it lands. But Jim, in the spirit of trying to turn over a new leaf for 2025, I believe it's time for band practice, sir.
Would you shut up and just push the button already?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean!
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, finally after a month, it is another version of the YZ Translator. The favorite segment of everyone of this show, because it is the final segment of the show. And if anybody paid attention to the amazing supercuts that my co-host and technical director threw together before the Christmas episode, you need to go back and watch them, because we have some funny shit coming out of here. And of course, it starts with the Chiron. Jim, what did you say we were going to name this?
I believe our new name for this is going to be the YZ Chronicle, because you've seen the supercuts. I think it just actually fits. Just keep it in line.
And this evening's YZ Chronicle, James, if you would, sir. Oh my god. Wait, did you mean Luigi?
No, because I mean it's kind of a there's got to be a Mario out there who could be thinking along the same lines as Luigi.
I like that better than the idea of finishing the show.
Because as of this time tomorrow, everyone prepare for the 76th annual Hunger Games.
And may the odds be ever in your favor. So, James,
to let a swarm of tracker jackers loose in that arena tomorrow.
just don't let them go to Atlanta. I really don't care.
Keep them in DC at that point.
Just don't let them get to OB either. Is there fighting going on?
Yep.
Nice. So, James, I will give you the first name in the YZ Translator and the first one for 2025. And we're going to start with a current event. And your first name is Lamar Jackson.
The runner-up for the 2024 NFL MVP award. And if it wasn't for Dan Campbell in Detroit, I could label him the new Mike Tomlin of the biggest choke artist in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. But then again, Mike Tomlin actually has to get to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs.
Yes. The Barry Bonds of the NFL.
Bonds at least got to a World Series.
Yeah, Bonds didn't get to a World Series, so he was on the juice in like 80.
And you know, Lamar's been to an AFC championship game, but there's part of me that would absolutely love to see Josh break through and finally get to a Super Bowl. Nate Burleson even said it on the post game, is that nobody deserves this more right now than Bills Mafia for everything that they've gone through.
Agreed.
And their window's certainly going to be closing a little bit, but then again, as long as Josh Allen is your quarterback, that window never has to close. And there's the argument that I made earlier with my dad thinking about the MVP. Lamar, great talent. He's the greatest running back in the history of the NFL that also calls plays under center. There's no question about that. He is a generational type talent. But we saw today, if you make him beat you with his arm as opposed to his legs, which I've said numerous times before, you will win 85% of those games. The difference is that Josh lost a lot of his weapons and still put up numbers very comparable to Lamar and got them to 14-2 and were the only team to legitimately beat Kansas City this year. Baltimore was in a playoff race and added Derrick Henry, who almost went for 2,000 yards. And then the other name in that equation is Michael. Your first name in the YZ Translator tonight is going to be the third member that was actually in the MVP conversation, and that is Saquon Barkley.
I'll take John Mara's personal insomnia for 500, Alex.
I'll take people who sit behind a desk and do nothing for 200.
Take me out like that.
I was watching Whose Line the other day. Someone went back and remastered all the old scenes from a hat in like 4K.
Yeah, well, like Drew doesn't do a damn thing. I will say this. The fact that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen both have jobs going into next year is an absolute fucking atrocity. Saquon Barkley, and let me say, in no disrespect to Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley is the NFL MVP. Hands down. The Philadelphia Eagles are not where they are without Saquon Barkley. It is the best move made in the offseason, and he was the most dynamic player on the field. He won't win the MVP because he's not a quarterback. But, and again, Josh Allen had a great year. Didn't throw as many touchdown passes as Baker, but he had a great year. Saquon's the MVP. And if they would have played him against the Giants, he would have broken Dickerson's record.
I could certainly see that. I mean, there's a lot of credence to that. It's almost unfair that they vote on this at the end of the regular season as opposed to going into the playoffs, because I would love to see the analogy of, Josh dethrones Lamar head to head. He beat Mahomes head to head, but Saquon still ripped off 205 yards in a playoff game. And let's see what he does next week. I mean, he'll certainly go for for at least a buck against that Washington defense.
Let me say this. If Saquon Barkley can go off like he did today, next week, a couple weeks from then, no matter who Philly plays, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
You're breaking my heart saying that.
But let me ask you the question. Barkley's more dynamic than Henry. Henry is straight downhill. Barkley is shifty and faster. Look what Derek did in the second half. What do you think Saquon with a better O-line is going to do to either team?
But if Saquon wins, Jason is not going on an all-time rant at the party on the front steps in Philly, like when they won a few years ago.
Oh, in the Mummers outfit. Amazing. Question. You don't think they want him there to do something like that?
I agree that they would want him there to do something like that, but can you imagine Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, all of the legends that would come out? Marv Levy would even still come out. And I mean, can you imagine 300,000 people in downtown Buffalo freezing their balls off?
Mm-hmm.
Balls, asses, and every other piece of unmentionable that they're wearing, all three layers of them at that particular point. Finally getting one over and hearing a "Let's go Buffalo" and there's no place you'd rather be than right here, right now.
I agree with you. I'm really speaking from a practical standpoint. This season, he is the most dynamic player in the NFL. And if we have learned anything in a one game off, a dynamic player can make plays and carry a team. Trust me, I know what that parade in Buffalo would be like, because it would be like the Cavs parade, where all the old heads would come out and be vindicated. I just think Saquon's going to go.
I mean, here's the other aspect with the Cavs parade. There were 1 million people, and it was the middle of summer, and it was something that we hadn't seen in 52 years. Buffalo has never won a major sports championship. The Sabres have only made 2 finals. The Bills at this point, this would be 5 Super Bowls for them, and they've come up empty, and they haven't, and neither one of them have anywhere been close. I mean, the closest that Buffalo came was Scott Norwood going wide right. Everything else was a blowout. The Sabres lost the 74 finals to Philly in 5. They lost the 90s. They lost the 95 finals to Dallas, the 99 finals to Dallas in 6. They've never had a look this good before. But I'll tell you this much. Saquon against Josh Allen would probably be one of the 3 highest rated Super Bowls ever.
I agree. But James, I'm going to stick with the football moniker here. And your second name in the Wisey Translator is new Hurricane quarterback Carson Beck.
I mean, he's going to be one and done unless he actually plans on staying in school about as long as Stetson Bennett did.
That's true.
And you'd got to figure it's par for the course for a Mario Cristobal coached squad. at this point to get transfers who have a monster year and then just move on, and quite honestly, we don't really hear from anymore.
No, you don't. You don't.
I think it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
Mhm.
But I mean, if they're going to start running their programs like minor league and everything, don't you think you'd kind of want to be able to develop somebody at this point as opposed to just go out and grab somebody out of the transfer portal every single year at this point and hope you actually get lucky with that?
You're going to see the teams that historically have developed players at certain positions continue that. You will see Penn State develop defensive players, even if they come over in the portal. You will see Ohio State develop wide receivers and running backs. You will see LSU develop wide receivers. You will see Alabama develop line on both sides of the ball and secondary. Kids who go to those schools that play those positions go to those schools now because that's where they're going to get to the quickest way to the NFL.
Could we possibly now, with the transfer portal and until they put a cap on the NIL and everything, could we possibly start seeing the point where somebody, and looks like Miami could be the leader in the clubhouse, is kind of developing that moniker like the LA Clippers, like the Maple Leafs, about going out and signing every big name talent that they can, hoping that it actually can turn things around? But it's too many cooks in a kitchen and too many aging vets at this point. I can't believe we're saying this about 23 and 24-year-old college football players, but going out and getting these guys that they only can squeeze a year, maybe two out of, and then they basically got to look and figure out, what do we do next?
I think the portal is going to be huge moving forward, but what I don't think you're going to see is it being as impactful in the top tier of programs. Because if you think about it, we were talking about Ohio State and their $20 million NIL, everybody's complaining about it. They didn't spend any of that on transfer players. They spent all that to keep their guys in school. That is a very, very, very veteran defense. Think about it this way. They required 4 players in the transfer portal last year. 4. Julian Sayin, Will Howard, Caleb Downs, Quinshon Judkins. That's it. 4 players. Sawyer, Tuimoloau, all those boys all stayed. That's where the NIL money went. But then you think about Oregon, who acquired their quarterback and 5 or 6 other players. Tennessee did the same thing, with the exception of the quarterback. Who else? Texas did that to keep viewers in school. Arch Manning. Everybody's going to be spending the money. It really depends on what you're developing. And right now, you see schools like a Notre Dame, like an Ohio State, like the teams that got to the Final Four in the playoff. They're developing the talent and bringing in guys who want to be there. So let's see what it does. I mean, they're going to put a cap on the NIL at some point in time.
Well, the one thing I actually was going to say when I actually took my hiatus during the last part of the was, and I brought this up with you earlier this week, that there is the only piece of legislature that actually came out of Congress in the last month that I like, especially with the shit show that is starting tomorrow. And thankfully I have video games and ESPN and everything, so I don't have to watch every major network bend the knee to an orange jackoff. That there's a bipartisan bill that's got support from not only, Ted, I'll be in Cancun this week, Cruz, because my state's too cold, and Hakeem Jeffries have both backed this, about limiting spending or capping it, and even kind of reducing it. The better part of, essentially, it's kind of salary capping the NIL money, because now there is talk that is not only taking the competitive advantage away, but some of these more smaller schools, to be able to stay competitive, to be in the middle of the pack in their conference, are going to have to spend so much to keep up with that they're going to have to sacrifice other sports. And even though we know that with the downgrade of everything and with the new regime coming in, what kind of changes are we going to see to Title IX? At that particular point, what else are they going to look to rip up? But, are these teams going to have to cut certain sports or dramatically cut back on sports because football is the cash cow, for some of these? Is Duke going to have to spend enough money? I mean, to be able to be middle of the road in the ACC to where they can't spend that kind of money on basketball. Florida State could be competitive in both. What's going to happen with Ohio State? Where are they going to put everything into football to the fact where where both of their college basketball teams blow, and the only other success, like consistent success they have right now, is their women's hockey team? What happens there?
It's going to be interesting.
I completely agree. It needs to be capped. We need a salary cap on this NIL money. Let them go out and get their endorsement money. But in terms of what you're getting from boosters and NIL, that you got to find a way to separate it and cap it. And that's when I'll start taking college football seriously.
That's fair. That's fair. What do you got for me to slam the door here, bud?
Mike, to slam the door, tonight, I blogged about him and he kind of left and he came back kind of like what we did. And I'm talking about a name, and his name is Jimmy Butler.
I've never known someone to pray to be the illegitimate child of someone. Jimmy Butler is. He's praying he's an illegitimate child of Michael Jordan. He really is. With the Severus Snape hair and the Adam Driver emo look he had at the beginning of the year to now. Come on, dude. Come on. Play the fucking game.
3 trades. He's made the playoffs all 5 years in Miami. He didn't play last year because he got hurt right at the end of the regular season. Ask for a trade. They suspend him. He comes back. He goes off, even though that they lose in his first game back. They're still going to move him at this point. Is it going to be at the trade deadline here in a few weeks? Is it going to be, are they going to flat out release him because he's still got one more year on that contract? I want to say he's owed $52 million for next year. And it's a player option. But, I mean, come on. You've got 2 finals appearances in the last 4 years. Yeah, you got run off the floor in both of them. But come on, dude. You're 35 years old. What exactly are you expecting is going to happen here?
Yeah, seriously, knock it the fuck off. Seriously. So, James, 206, not bad. Not bad at all. And next Sunday we will recap. Well, I will recap tomorrow night, and then we will talk more.
Unless they lose, then I will be on here to gloat for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and then I will duck out.
Yeah, I'll recap tomorrow night, and then of course, by the time we come on, we will be at the tail end of the second game of championship weekend, and we'll be able to partially preview the Super Bowl next Sunday. Of course, the Cavs and everybody else, and the Wisey Translator and the Wisey Chronicles. We'll come to you, but
because programming note is that we're here next Sunday. We're here the Sunday after that, and then that following week we're on Saturday because there's no way we're going to be live during the big game.
Yeah, not at all.
Even if we don't have stake in it, even if my Bills don't get there, we're still going to watch it in some capacity.
Well, yeah.
And I actually want to kind of see halftime for about 2 seconds to be able to see if he takes a shot at Mikey Che, because your war with him is just beginning.
Nice. But the rest of this week is going to be pretty packed for the Martinez family, including Tuesday.
On a personal level, Michael, happy birthday.
Thank you. And a shout out to our buddy Nick Credes, who is literally to the minute 5 hours older than me.
Are you going to go outside and try and make a snow angel?
Fuck you.
You're going to throw Little Rican in that snow. I know you will.
He wants to go to New York so bad because he wants to see his brother and sister, but he's like, I want to see snow. We're like, no.
You're going to see it. It's just a matter of how much is it? How much are you guys expecting?
They said 1 to 2.
So you
But
can
it's
go
not
out
gonna
there and
last-
make a decent snow angel. He'll be all slushy and everything, but still.
Yeah, it's gonna be 55 by Sunday. It's not gonna be here long, so.
By the way, very, very quickly before I get out of here, we have not played this at all this year. That's going to be the only time we're going to hear that going forward because they broke up last night.
No.
And what is going on right now? I cannot say his name, but there is a lot of talk that he could be winning the TNA World Championship tonight. I cannot say his name.
No, we can't.
Have you seen any of Raw on Netflix at all, even if tuning in for like 2 seconds?
I have not seen the shows. I did see my favorite promo so far when when CM Punk got interrupted by AJ Styles or by
Drew McIntyre?
Not Drew.
Seth Rollins.
By Seth Rollins, and he turns around and they kept the mic on. And he goes to McAfee. Why is it never someone I want to see? Why couldn't Rhea Ripley interrupt me?
Yeah, I did see that. And did you see the drama that's going on with McAfee right now? Did you hear anything about the broadcasting?
No, but I did. I mean, I heard about the
Corey Graves thing?
No.
Corey Graves got moved off of Raw because they wanted McAfee on Netflix, but when he leaves to go do College Game Day and everything, they moved Graves down to NXT, and Graves basically took a backhanded shot on them on social media on the company that he worked for. He took the tweet down, which actually means when that happens, that's not a work and that's not a storyline. That's a shoot.
Yeah, it is a shoot. I will say this. One, McAfee is very good at it with WWE. He's very good.
He's entertaining. It's debatable, but when he's actually not like standing up, yeeting all over everything, he's borderline insufferable. And Corey Graves is like Graves and Cole work so much as good as entertaining as McAfee and Cole are together. Graves and Cole are like light years better.
Don't disagree. McAfee brings more of the entertainment value. Graves brings more of the broadcast value. It's kind of like, as much as we love him, Heyman on the mic with JR was more entertaining, but it wasn't as good as when the King was there.
Yeah, because we grew up watching Heyman as the mad scientist in ECW. We're old enough to remember the Dangerous Alliance with the Zach Morris brick phone.
Mm-hmm.
With Beautiful Bobby and Larry Zbyszko and Ravishing Rick and Medusa.
It's kind of like in the 80s. Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon were great. Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon were better.
Will you stop?
So we will see you guys next Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. And I have to end it with my
shut up.
2 favorite words. Go Bucks. It's been 10 years. I'm allowed to cheer.
Why did it load that one?
Oh, because it was first night back.